I got rid of like half my makeup. Hello friends, happy new year. It's been a while. As most of you know by now, I am no longer a full-time influencer. I do have a 9-to-5 corporate job that has nothing to do with beauty. And with that life change, my relationship with makeup has slowly been changing as well. I still love to glam up. I still love to do a full face, but I'm just noticing that I'm really leaning toward tried and trues versus like rotating through a bunch of different products. And I shared my everyday work makeup routine a few videos ago, but I'm also noticing that even when I'm not going into work, like if I just have social plans, I'm still reaching for the same products because they just work and I can do it fast. So with that said, my makeup collection was already overdue for a declutter, but this time around I wanted to be extra discerning. And in today's video, I am going to be showing you what survived this massive makeup declutter. And let me tell you why. When I declutter in front of y'all, I keep way too much makeup. I do a way better job at decluttering when it's off camera because I'm not swatching every little thing. So if I haven't used something in like 4+ months, it's gotta go. I don't want to remind myself how pretty it is and maybe I can wear it here or there. No, I'm not reaching for it. It needs to go. When I start swatching stuff so y'all can see is when I convince myself to keep more. The other reason I did this process off camera is because I decluttered every single drawer. That would have been like a 5-hour-long video. I got rid of like half my makeup. And this is already going to be kind of a lengthy and chatty video because I still have more makeup than the average person. So let's get into it. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name is Miranda. I've been creating beauty content online since 2012, but I'm so glad you found me today. Let me show you what's left of my makeup collection. Okay, starting with my top drawer. Now, my organization is still a work in progress because I feel like since I pared down so much of my product that I could probably rearrange like what products go in which drawer. Right now, this top drawer consists of eyeliners and then like eye tools. So we have eyelash curlers, some eyebrow razors, tweezers, etc. And then my brow products here. And then I also have some like face jewels here in back, as well as some false lashes that I'm currently reusing. So I'm just using kind of the empty space back here. Now I will say that I got rid of so many eyeliners. I felt like eyeliners were definitely one of those products where I was hoarding them just in case, like certain colors or formulas, whatever, and then reaching for the same, 3 or 4, depending on the mood. So right now, here are the liners that I'm reaching for on a regular basis. I kept 2 pencil liners and 2 liquid liners. So starting with the LA Girl Ultimate Eye Intense Stay Auto Liner. This is the one that came out on top in my drugstore eyeliner comparison video. Super opaque, just absolutely gorgeous formula. The other pencil liner I kept was the e.l.f. No Budge Retractable Liner. I admit that I like this one a little bit less than the LA Girl in terms of the overall appearance. It is a bit stiffer of a formula, and in my opinion, it's just not as black. So here you can tell the difference between the e.l.f. liner and the LA Girl liner. To me, the e.l.f. liner always looked a little brown compared to the other black pencil liners I swatched, but it does stay pretty well. Sometimes I find the LA Girl liner to slightly smudge outside of my waterline when my eyes are just particularly oily on any given day. So that's why I kept both of them. Now, as far as liquid liners, this may come as a surprise because I actually did not keep the liquid liner that came out on top in my liquid liner comparison. And this just goes to show again how now that I'm doing my makeup and leaving the house and kind of testing it more so in the real world, I'm getting different results. And I think that, my lifestyle change of having this corporate job has really impacted my opinions on certain products. So in that video, the Physicians Formula liquid liner was definitely like my overall favorite. However, when I started wearing it every single day to work, it was definitely smudging. And I was not liking the long-term wear. And I found that going back to my old faithful, the NYX Epic Ink Liner, this performed much better in practice throughout the day. It is a thicker felt tip versus that Physicians one, but I just find that again, it is very easy to apply and it lasts really well. However, I do like having a skinny liquid liner as well, which is why I kept the Wet n Wild Breakup Proof Skinny Waterproof Liquid Liner. This one has a very, very thin brush tip, so when I'm looking to do more of a precise line, ooh, that was not a precise line, but I can get a lot thinner with this. If I'm trying to do a kitten wing or just something a lot more subtle, ignore the top. I lost control of my hand there. This one ended up working better in practice versus the Physicians Formula Skinny Liner. So these have been my 4 everyday workhorse liners. Now I did keep quite a few colorful options. I've been definitely using a lot of these multi-chromes for concerts, special events. I'll probably use one for New Year's Eve. I am filming this ahead of New Year's Eve. I'm not sure if it'll go up before New Year's Eve, just full disclosure. But there were 2 brands where I kept the majority of multi-chromes that I own from them. So I have some from Kaleidos, which is a Sea Beauty brand, and then Moira. So I kept 3 from Moira. This one's called Flare. This next one is Rhea, which is like a greenish blue shift. I love that one. You can kind of see the dark blue at the bottom there and that emerald green on top. But I think this one might be my favorite. It's Atlas, because this one I just feel like has the most colors shifting throughout the entire liner. It goes from like green to yellow to pink to purple. I think that is so interesting. See, you can kind of see it at this angle. We've got green, a little bit of orange to pink to purple. So that's definitely my favorite from the Moira multi-chrome liners. And then I believe this was all of my Kaleidos liners. I don't think I actually decluttered any of the Kaleidos ones because these I do prefer formula-wise. They're just obviously more expensive. I want to say they're like $16 each, where these with my code are probably around, I don't know, $5. But the thing with the Kaleidos liners, this one is 7Cs. I feel like these end up looking a lot more opaque. And maybe you can kind of see the difference. So there's Kaleidos. I think it looks more like a solid line versus the Moira ones. Sometimes the shimmer doesn't quite make a fully opaque solid line, where the Kaleidos one definitely does. This one is Tourmaline. Now, if I remember correctly, this is actually very similar to Atlas from Moira. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Kind of, but it's so much more dramatic of a shift. So here we've got like the yellow orange coming out, and then just the slightest movement turns the entire color much more dramatically than the Moira. This next one is Sparkle Icy Blue. Like, that is just so intense. That's why I could not declutter any of these. This one is Solaris. And to be fair, like, I think that Solaris and Flare from Moira, those are definitely dupe shades, but you can just see how much stronger the Kaleidos shift is. Here is Night of Creation. This is another kind of blue to purple shade. Not as dramatic of a shift, but still a very metallic shade. And this last one is Limelight. Now, I will say recently, actually, I think this one might be a dupe for this Moira, so let's swatch them side by side. Or not a dupe. The Moira one's the dupe because it's cheaper. But you can see very similar shift. I do think that the Moira ones are very much comparable at such a lower price that, you know, if $16 is a little bit on the pricey side for you, the Moira ones are gonna get you there. You know what I'm saying? I feel that they are equally long lasting and smudge proof. Case in point. Because of the tariffs and whatnot, it's been harder for me to find Kaleidos anywhere other than their website. You used to be able to buy these liners on Urban Outfitters, but I feel like it's been kind of hit or miss lately. And the rest of the eyeliners are just kind of a hodgepodge. I do need to get a new brown pencil liner. That is one that I did declutter, the one that I had from Essence, because it was not lasting on me and it was smudging like in real life. So I will probably get it in the ColourPop formula. Oh, let's just tuck that back in. I'll probably get Brouhaha, which is the ColourPop formula. I really love these BFF cream gel liners. That one is in Exit, which is a white, obviously. This one is Prance, which this one I believe was in a winter collection. So I'm not sure if that one is limited edition or not, but I felt like it just pops off my skin in. Same with this one, which is Amethyst. I love lilac. It's one of my favorite shades, or lavender. I don't really know the difference between lilac and lavender. Can someone tell me in the comments? Oh no, wait, this one's dried out. Oh, I didn't swatch this when I decided to keep it when I was decluttering. Actually, we might need to declutter this one. This one must be old because ew. Okay, live declutter decision. Well, let's see if this one's also dried out. This one is Piggy Bank. I think this one's relatively newer. Yeah, this one's still creamy. Really pretty. And then these two are from Moira. They're statement gel liners. Again, a beautiful pink that pops off my skin. This one's called Baby Pink. So creamy and opaque. Look how solid that line is. And this is a hot pink, which is literally called hot pink. Very like Barbie, just glides on the skin. And then the only other liner I have in here is the Moira 2-in-1 Lash Adhesive. Like I said, this middle bin is just a bunch of tools. So I have my pencil sharpeners, my eyelash curlers. I have a couple in there. I do prefer the Japanesque one. Several tweezers in here. I've got some eyeliner tape and face razors. Which leaves me to my brow product drawer. This is one that I was definitely decluttering a lot because, you know, I had a lot of those brow liquid pens that were really, really popular in 2024, 2025. I feel like so many brands put them out. And, you know, I tried a lot of them, and a lot of them are in some of those like first impression or day wear test videos. They're not my preferred tool. They just always look markery. There's just no forgiveness with my brows and like the sparse areas. So I think I mentioned this a couple videos ago when I was talking about my everyday makeup routine now that I'm not a full-time influencer. And I am back to using the Benefit Precisely my brow pencil as my go-to brow product. It is so nice and thin. The shade is just right for me. I use 6, which is a cool dark brown. It's not quite black. It creates very, very thin strokes that look like hair, blends out really nicely with the spoolie. And I personally stock up during the Ulta 21 Days of Beauty sale or the Sephora sale, because then they come down to about, I want to say like $13, which makes them pretty comparable to drugstore eyebrow pencils, especially from the products that I would consider close to this. Like I always said that the L'Oreal Brow Stylist was probably the closest drugstore dupe to this, but still not quite. Another one from the drugstore that I do keep on hand though is the NYX Micro Brow Pencil. This is also very similar, and considering NYX is owned by L'Oreal, I do feel like this is similar also to the L'Oreal Brow Stylist Pencil. L'Oreal kind of just makes the same products for all of their brands. That is just my opinion. That is not substantiated. It's just anecdotal and observational. But this is in black, and I mean, look how similar that is. I mean, it is very close to being a dupe. I feel like the Benefit one lasts a bit longer in my opinion, but this is a good option. The thing is that when this is on sale, it's about the same price. I also use the Benefit Gimme Brow pretty consistently because this is one of the only like tinted brow gels that I still feel looks natural on me and really gives me that more like undone look while still filling in my sparse areas. I feel like a lot of other tinted brow gels end up being like moussey with a thicker consistency, sort of like the Maybelline Super Fluff, which I will use, but this is not going to give me a natural look. The Benefit one does. So again, this is a product that I pick up when I can, when it's on sale. And again, it's one that I really have not found a dupe for. One product that came really close was from Honest Beauty, but it's getting kind of hard to find Honest Beauty products, at least in the drugstores near me. They have a tinted brow gel that I think looked amazing. Didn't get a lot of hype. I think Honest Beauty in general doesn't get a lot of hype, but the Maybelline Super Fluff is kind of a close second. It's just a very, very different product. It is a lot thicker, and I do find that it kind of gets a little crumbly. You can see it a little bit here. And because with my brows, when I talk about like the shape of my brows, there are areas of my brows that literally have no hair. So the brow gel does just go on my bare skin and has to kind of like create the illusion. And I feel like this does that better versus some of the other tinted brow gels that end up looking crumbly on bare skin because there's not hair to like camouflage that that texture. By the way, that was the Maybelline Super Fluff in Black Brown. That is a very good brow match for me. And then I use 6 again in the Gimme Brow. And you can kind of just tell how much smoother this formula is, and thinner, obviously, versus the Maybelline. I have 2 clear brow gels. I have the Benefit one. Unfortunately, this one does not go on sale as often as their like color brow products. This is just their 24-hour brow setter. The name has rubbed off because I've used this so much. It's just their clear brow gel. I just love the comb on this. There is a long side and a short side, and it has so many small little teeth that this doesn't end up globbing product onto your brow and making that cast. Like, it's really getting every single hair nicely coated with a very thin layer. Now, my backup or alternative at the drugstore is the L'Oreal 24-hour brow lamination. Honestly, I do feel like, you know, this is the 24-hour brow setter. This is the 24-hour brow lamination. They are very similar products. I do think that this one also performs really well in terms of staying power, but this is just a very bottom tier, common spoolie, and I think that it applies too much product. So this does end up giving me sort of a shiny cast that I have to then take like a brow brush like this and comb out the excess product every time I use this. I have a clear brow gel from Pretty Smart. I just opened this. I'm not like, I have this other Maybelline Super Fluff. This is in black, and I found that this was actually too black for me. And I usually go between like the darkest brown and black when it comes to my brows because I have cool dark brown brows, and a lot of dark browns are just too chocolatey. So I thought that black would work. It was actually way too stark. The Avon Power Stay, this is what I purchased in Scotland and cannot find it here in the US. I asked my mother-in-law, who was recently in Ireland, if she could look out for it because they have Superdrug there as well. Could not find it. This is the only liquid brow product that works for me, and it's not in a pen, it's in like this kind of dip liner format, but this is very, very much so a tint, as you can see, whereas a lot of those other brow pens were like fully opaque, like they might as well have just been brown eyeliners, but this is so much more of a tint, and then when it dries, it does not move, and it seems like there's nowhere for me to buy it online that I can order to ship to the US. Here's another tinted brow product. This one's from Milani. They call it a tinted brow mousse. This one I don't like as much as the Maybelline because I do feel like this one's even thicker and a little harder to work with. Like, look how pigmented that is. Like, in any other type of makeup, that would be a pro, but for brows, I just feel like it ends up being a little bit hard to work with and blend out. It's workable. It's just, you know, on the ladder, it's my least favorite. And then lastly, I have my Brow BFF from Subtle. This is like my go-to in the beauty bag while traveling brow product. This is in the shade dark brown. Now this is one where they did not quite have a shade match that was perfect for me, but the product is so genius that I still am keeping it. I'm also not a fan of how thick the pencil tip is, but here's the whole point of the Brow BFF. So you have the brow pencil and it's like almost there. It is on the cooler side. It's just a little too light for my natural brow color. But on the other side, you have your brush for blending it out. And then you have gel. You have brow gel. So like this is so perfect to just cut down on things you need while traveling, and we'll see a little bit more subtle as we get through my makeup collection. Alrighty, on to the next drawer, which is also eye focused. I have mini eyeshadow palettes, eyeshadow crayons, singles and liquid eyeshadows, as well as my mascaras. So let's get into my mascaras first because I really only kept a few. Now, a couple videos ago where I shared my non-influencer everyday makeup routine, the mascara that I showed in that video was the waterproof CoverGirl mascara. I have recently switched to the L'Oreal Panorama mascara, which is one of my favorite drugstore formulas, but in the waterproof version. I find that as an everyday mascara, I need to go waterproof in order for my curl to last all day. It's just what I have to do. So this has been my go-to every single day mascara. Now I did also keep the Max Factor mascara that I got in the UK. I really like the effect of this, although it's not an all-day mascara for me. This is something that I'll throw on if I'm just getting ready to go to dinner. And kind of same for the Maybelline Sky High, for the reason that both of these flake when you wear them way too long, and if you're building them up like in the way that I usually build up my mascaras. The Maybelline Sky High in, what is this called? Burgundy Breeze or something? Burgundy Haze. I was close. I just like this as kind of a pop of something different. But again, because the Sky High formula doesn't really last on me very well, this is not something that I would wear if I'm doing my makeup in the morning to last all day. And lastly, the jury's still out on this new L'Oreal Extensionist mascara. I just feel like this doesn't hold my curl, so the length that it gives me is less impactful because my lashes flatten out. Now, this drawer may look familiar because this was the drawer that I most recently decluttered in a video, I believe. I did do a second pass recently and definitely got rid of a lot more. It's hard for me to get rid of shadows, right? Because I feel like on the everyday at work, I'm using crayons the most. And I feel like a lot of my crayons are like the same color. I have a lot of like mauve-y shades, a lot of bronzy shades, and then highlighty pinky shades. Let me do this by brand. So most of the ones I kept were from Urban Decay. Their Naked eyeshadow crayon line. I feel like these last on me the best. I do still need to use primer. The Milani Stay Put primer has been the only one that's worked for me lately. I feel like now that I'm like leaving the house, my eyelids are getting oilier. So I've had to switch back to this, and it really does help my shadow last all day. So let me swatch these very quickly for you. This first one is Top Off, which is a shimmery, slightly pink champagne. Then we have Peach Bum, which is a peachier champagne shimmer, and this is probably one that I use a little bit more often. Next is Exposed, which is a matte mauve shade. I don't know if it's mauve. It's maybe like a medium peachy pink. What would you call that? Then we have Toasty, which is a medium brown with silver shimmer, which is really nice for my cooler skin tone. Then next I have Cinnocent, which is a matte, deep chocolate brown. And finally, we have Private Album, which is a dark shimmery brown. And this one's a little bit more cooler than Toasty, obviously. So I do feel like that complements my skin tone a little bit better when I want to wear it all over the lid. This is probably the one that I grab the most when I want to do like a deeper halo eye. So I'll use Private Album and then Peach Bum in the middle. But I also find myself using Toasty a lot for work, just because once it's blended out on my skin tone, it's a lot more, oh, it's already kind of set. It's a lot more subtle. The next two that I have are from L'Oreal Lay Shadow Stick, and these are two that I often wear together. This first shade is Magnetic Bronze, and again, a little bit cooler of a brown. And then I usually pair that with Magnetic Mauve, but it's a light enough mauve that I can definitely wear them together as like a halo eye look, but Magnetic Mauve also looks really pretty all over the eyelid. Then I have two from the Maybelline Color Tattoo shadow sticks. I miss the Maybelline Color Tattoos in the jars. Can't find them anymore. I personally felt like those were a much superior formula to these shadow stick versions. This shade is I Am Inspired. This one's kind of similar to Peach Bum, to be honest. And remember, Maybelline and Urban Decay are both owned by L'Oreal. So not super surprised. I would say that these are probably the closest to the Urban Decay sticks, more so than the Lay Shadow sticks. The Lay Shadow sticks are more smooth and like satin, whereas the Maybelline ones, especially the ones that are labeled shimmer, are very close to the shimmery finish of the Urban Decay shadow sticks. So if you were looking for a dupe, these would be a little bit closer. This shade is I Am Courageous, and that one's more of a champagne shimmer topper. I feel like that's a lot less opaque. I have one that's just hanging on from ColourPop. I've owned this so long. This is Bear With Me. It is a beautiful matte mauve shade, and this is a lot cooler than the Urban Decay matte, which is why I kept it. I've had this shadow stick way longer than I probably should have, but it's definitely one of my favorite bases. Like I'll put this down and then maybe the champagne in the middle for an everyday halo eye. The last two shadow sticks that I kept are from the CoverGirl Clean Eye Color collection. These are so pretty. This one is in the shade Mystic Maroon. This is a nice like all over smoky eye type color. And then I have that with Ballerina Blush, which is again another kind of pinky champagne, but more of a satin finish, or I guess metallic is maybe a better word for it, versus the other ones that I have in the champagne shades that are shimmery. So these are definitely symbolic of the shades that I'm reaching for on a daily basis. These are the products that I'm reaching for on a daily basis. I'm not really reaching for powder shadows or shadow palettes unless it's the weekend or for special events. Like I do have special events for work, which I will add a little bit more drama to my look. But for in-office days, this is the vibe. Now I want to quickly go through the mini palettes because like I said, recently showed this in a video, but here are the ones that I kept. And some of these I almost decluttered, but I wanted to keep them because they've been like drugstore staples for me. And as I am continuing to do beauty videos, I want a good variety of brands and color palettes to pull from when I create different looks and, you know, share different favorites, even if I'm not necessarily reaching for them all the time. So the first one that I kept is from Pretty Smart. This is their quad in 104, which is sort of a neutral but purple leaning color story. This is such a good 4 shades that you can kind of create a bunch of different looks. You can use these all together if you want to go fully glam. You can do 2 of them if you want to do a more dramatic halo eye, or even this way for a less dramatic halo eye. I love how they put these together. It's just such a good quad that you don't need to reach for anything else. I also kept one of the mini Urban Decay Naked palettes. And again, this is not one that I grab often, but I like having it especially to find dupes. So this is in the half-baked version, and it is one of their more warmer neutral colors stories. But you know, it has that iconic, super soft, super intense eyeshadow formula that is really hard to beat. So it kind of is the standard of eyeshadow quality when I'm looking for drugstore options that are, you know, up to par. Look at that. Ugh, so beautiful. I kept 2 e.l.f. palettes. These are the 2 newest e.l.f. palettes to my collection. This one's in Nude Mood, which is just matte neutrals. And I feel like this is such a good palette to own when you just need a solid foundation to use, you know, shimmery singles on top of, or you have something specific in mind. Having a solid collection of neutral mattes is so key for any makeup collection. Now, this formula is okay. I mean, we just, you know, swatched those Urban Decay shadows. These are definitely not as buttery, and they are slightly less pigmented as well, but they're not bad by any means. Like, see that dark brown? I mean, leaves a little bit to be desired. It is a little bit on the sheerer side, but it is an easy formula to work with, to build up. But especially with mattes, I'm often using these as the base or crease shade. I'm trying to blend them out. I want them to be soft. So having them be on a little bit the sheerer side is not a deal breaker. I feel like this is just a good one to have. Now I also have their Keep It Ethereal palette. This one is a little bit more interesting. I feel like this is almost a sheerer formula, and a lot of these shimmers kind of translate more like toppers. You can see here, it's not an opaque shimmer shade. It's more so just shimmer. So I would use that, like, for example, on top of one of these mattes or one of the mattes in this actual palette. I also kept 2 of my Milani Gilded mini palettes. I've said this in the past. These are some of my favorites because, again, I feel like they did a great job at deciding which shades to put in here, where you really don't need to work outside of this for several different looks. And because they're so small and so slim, amazing for travel. So this has been my favorite for like a very grungy Y2K Smoky Eye. I think that the black is actually a decent, rich black, which is very, very hard to find in honestly any eyeshadow palette, but especially at the drugstore. And then these shimmer shades, or metallic shades rather, are very, very high impact, really pretty. So definitely had to keep that one. I ended up keeping this one over the CoverGirl Smoky palette, which is one that I've actually repurchased a few times. I just felt like this is all I needed. And in the CoverGirl Smoky palette, there were a lot of shades that I just did not use. The other Gilded Mini palette I kept was the Wind Down, which is again a purpley neutral. I think that these shades look really good against my brown eyes, so wanted to keep that one as well. I also kept only one of the Revolution Icon palettes. This is the Enchanted Icon. And again, this does lean a little bit more purpley, but we've got some staple neutral browns and then just these beautiful, beautiful shimmers. Like this one is crazy. That one is more of a topper, but I really love these palettes. There are 4 in total. I think that the formula is great. It is incredibly buttery, really, really easy to work with. During the pandemic, Revolution bought BH Cosmetics and everyone's like, awesome. Are they going to start using the formula? Because BH Cosmetics shadows were so much better than Revolution's, and you know, people didn't really know which way that was going to go. These palettes are the closest that I've seen Revolution put out or they're the closest to BH Cosmetics in terms of the shadow quality that Revolution has put out since that whole purchase. Also kept my little Physicians Formula Butter Believe It eyeshadow palette. This is another repurchase where I had one, it broke. I will say for the price of this, which is I think like 15 bucks, the packaging sucks. It's literally cardboard with like the plastic window. This is not something that I would travel with, which is unfortunate because it's a great color story to travel with and it's such a nice little compact mini palette, but it's just too fragile. So I did repurchase it though because I love the formula so much. Just really, really beautiful shimmers. It has the butter formula that Physicians Formula is known for, with like the Muru Muru butter and Kupuasu butter, and I think Takuma butter is in there as well. Very opaque. The quality is great, but when you really think about the price, like per ounce, I feel like this would be on par with some high-end products, but it does perform well. So it's hard to like complain about that. You know what I'm saying? I do wish though that like they could have cut the profit margin somewhere and it would be the packaging. If this had harder packaging or just like a little bit more elevated packaging, I would feel that the price was a lot more worth it because of the way that the shadows perform. Now this one was a near declutter just because I don't use it a lot, but I feel like it's such a drugstore staple that again, for content reasons, I felt like I needed to keep it. This is the Wet n Wild Color Icon palette in Walking on Eggshells, which if you have been in the beauty community since the beginning, like I have, you remember when this was just a trio, and throughout the years, Wet n Wild has added shades to it and has improved the formula. And this is just another one that I couldn't get rid of, kind of for sentimental reasons, but also for content reasons. And then finally, I have this little YSL compact. This is their Couture Mini Clutch in 200. This is just so pretty and crazy. Like I don't have a lot of luxury beauty. I think they sent this to me in a package one year and I was like, how the heck did they get my information? But it's beautiful, beautiful makeup. It makes me feel real fancy when I wear it. The formula, it's okay. The packaging and experience is kind of the draw here, but this is really nice for the holidays. We've got like this gold topper that can go over any of the shades to make them a little more festive. I'll be the first to say the quality is fine, but I definitely could not bring myself to declutter such a beautiful piece of makeup. Now I have more palettes in, but the last section in this drawer, I have 3 other small palettes and then singles. So the other Wet n Wild palette that I did keep is the Color Icon 10 pan in Heart and Soul. Purpley, pinky, obviously it's a little warmer, but again, I wanted to keep one of my larger Wet n Wild palettes that was not part of a limited edition collection, and I'll tell you why. Again, this is not substantiated. This is anecdotal and observation based. I do not believe they use the same formula. as these as they do in their limited edition collections. I just feel like whenever I use one of their limited edition palettes, the quality does not feel the same. It feels chalkier, it feels less pigmented. These feel super soft. The pigmentation is very, very decent for the price because like this is $5. Even cheaper sometimes if you can find them at like Five Below. Look at that metallic. Really, really pretty. Opaque. You don't need a lot of product to build it up. The mattes are pretty rich as well. Very smooth, easy to blend. The other two palettes in this little section, just because they didn't fit in the other one, are from Kaleidos. Again, they just have such beautiful products. And I will say that like they're kind of more mid-range. They're not necessarily high-end, but for what they cost, like the experience is beautiful. Just kind of like what I said with the YSL, except not only do they have absolutely beautiful packaging, look at this embroidery, although this kind of looks like ovaries now that I'm looking at it. Anyway, not only do they have really beautiful, thoughtful packaging, but the formula is good. Like this formula is much better than the YSL. Overall, a better experience, I would say. This is their quad palette in Twilight Rush, which is a smoky, shimmery purple. Holy Toledo. Hello? This is like a navy or like a black with navy sparkle. I cannot get over that. Hello? One of the most beautiful shades I've ever seen, but their mattes are equally soft, buttery. I would even say that this formula rivals Urban Decay in the opacity, the softness. It's just incredible. The other quad that I have from them is Venus Trap, which is this really, really cool toned, like taupey color story with mostly mattes actually. The other one had 2 mattes, 2 shimmers, but yeah, this one is just very unique. I feel like I don't see a lot of gray, taupey, cool toned shades like this, but this shimmer is just molten silver. Now the rest of these are single shadows. I have 2 liquid shadows from About Face. This is one of their holographic eye paints in the shade Total Eclipse, which I wore to when we were young, when I went to the festival with them. It is just this beautiful, like orangey, green, gold shift. So pretty. You can wear it just all over the lid. You can paint your eye with it. You can use it as liquid eyeliner if you want. And then this is a shimmery black called Glitch. Really, really nice for just grungy, quick, messy. Then I have a single from Half Magic. You've probably seen this around. This is their Blushing Lizard single. I know that this is like sustainable packaging and all, but I don't like it. It does not stay closed. I don't feel like I can travel with this. I don't know. I'm all for sustainable packaging. I'm all for recyclable packaging. I just wish that it was a little more secure. There's just zero security with this, but it is such a beautiful shade that I had to keep it. Check that out. So pretty. I often wear this on its own. It does have kind of a sheer quality to it, but I think that just makes it look a little more ethereal, but you can definitely wear it over a dark base as well. Then I have 3 singles from Moira. These are their Chroma Light shadows, some of my favorite multi-chromy shades, but I did only keep 4, which was very hard for me because these are probably my most used eyeshadow singles. I just have been, again, gravitating more toward the eyeshadow crayons versus powder lately. This one is in Renegade, pinky blue shift. This one's similar to Blushing Lizard. It is Summer Dream. So you have that kind of rusty penny type appearance where it's mauvey, but it's also green, kind of like a tarnished penny. This one is Lilac Love. I will say that these feel a little stiffer than when I first opened them, so they're definitely drying out, but just could not part with these ones. And this last one is Kiss and Tell. Probably out of all 4, this is my most worn, particularly in the summer. I just like throwing that all over my lid. And then finally, we have 3 ColourPop Super Shock shadows. Some of my favorite singles, but again, I just did not find myself using them so often, so I really just kept the ones that are really, really my favorites. This one is in Ripple. This is a kind of stronger purple shifty shade. Like the base is stronger than the lilac in the Moira. And then I have two champagne shades. This is Flower Child. These I feel like I can use as both an eyeshadow as well as a face highlight. A little bit more golden of a champagne. And then this last one is La Mesa. Very similar. Another kind of goldy champagne, but there's almost like a more neutral undertone to that one. Or am I crazy and lying? Alrighty, that is the smaller eyeshadow drawer. We have one more later on. Now on to my powders, primers, foundations, and concealers. Now this drawer still looks very full, but when I tell you I got rid of so much, I just think that like with these products are a little bit bigger. That's why it still looks very full. So let's go through my concealers first, because I definitely tossed most of these and I really only kept the ones that I'm reaching for often. Basically 5. And then I have my little Salt New York. You know what? I would not be able to tell you whether this is the face balm or the concealer. I kind of use them interchangeably, but there's that. I kept my NYX Bear With Me Concealer Serum, which is such a beautiful everyday concealer that you can also use kind of all over the face as a very thin foundation. This is what came out on top when I tested like under eye drugstore concealers. Kept that one. I also kept my green LA Girl Pro Conceal, but I did declutter the like skin toned ones. This is my favorite for color correcting acne. I also kept the NYX Pro Fix Stick Concealer because this one is better for me when I'm trying to fill in texture. Since it has a creamier formula, it does give me a little bit of that smoothing power. I kept my Tower 28 concealer. This one though, I gotta say, I'm using less after falling in love with the Versed concealer. I feel like they're so similar, but Versed is obviously a little bit cheaper. So the Versed is definitely my everyday concealer, whether I'm just doing concealer or I'm doing concealer and foundation. This is the one that I use, and the shade 5N is like perfect for me. The Tower 28 concealer, I have IE. This is okay for when I'm doing under my eyes because as you can tell, it's a little bit lighter. It's not the perfect match for me. So that's kind of how I've been using this, especially in the winter where the skin around my eyes is very dry. I'm getting even some eczema. This is a great formula for like sensitive skin, dry skin, flaky skin. Now, I did end up, I'm looking at this and I'm like, ooh, should I do another pass? Because I ended up with 2 baskets of primers. The one that I'm using the most is the Essence Jelly Grip Primer. I did a recent video testing drugstore grippy primers and this came out on top. I mean, this has completely risen the bar when it comes to grippy primers because it grips onto my makeup. My makeup lasts all day. It looks fresh, but it's not sticky. It's not thick. It spreads well and it actually feels hydrating, which a lot of grippy primers claim to do, but this actually makes my skin feel good. Now, the other primer that I've been using a lot is also from Essence. It's their Bouncy Plump Primer. This one, obviously, oh, it's just on its side. You can tell I've used maybe a third of it. I'm not using it as much, but this is great for smoothing power. It does still extend the wear of my makeup, just not as much as the Jelly Grip. But this gives me a really nice, like bouncy, dewy finish. The one downside to both of these primers is that they are heavily fragranced, which I'm kind of surprised about coming from Essence and being like an EU company, but it doesn't linger too much. It doesn't affect my skin. So it's something I'm willing to overlook because these are so affordable. They are $3.99 and they just perform so nicely on my textured skin. Talking about textured skin, I also kept the Milani Conceal and Perfect Blur Out Primer. This has been something that I'm using a little bit more now that it's winter because it is such a dewy primer that I felt like it was way too much in summer when I was like sweating and producing my own dew. But this is a very, very beautiful blurring primer. Now, I did keep a few of the other grippy primers that I tested in that video just because they're full and they still work well enough that I can see myself at least trying to use them up once I'm out of the Essence one. And then, before I repurchase another one of these, trying not to create so much waste here. So I kept the Revolution Super Grip and I kept the Maybelline Jelly. Oh wait, this isn't the sticky one. This is the Jelly Poreless. Did I get rid of the Maybelline sticky one? Maybe I did. Okay, so I kept the Revolution Sticky Primer. This one is the Maybelline Jelly Primer, which is a blur primer, not not a sticky primer. What else do I have in here? Oh, the Smashbox Photo Finish one. This is like the OG. This is the Holy Grail. This looks so, so, so beautiful. Just not using it a ton because I'm weird and saving it for special events, which I need to get out of the habit of. If you have a product, just use it. That's what it's there for. And then I have two like moisturizers that I often use as primers. This one more so in, the summer. This is the La Roche-Posay Double Repair Matte Moisturizer. It's a really nice mattifying moisturizer. There's a little bit of oil control in there, so I like using this under makeup in the summer. And then I do use the Glow Recipe Niacinamide drops as a prep step sometimes, especially when I'm using, when I need the coverage. It's a kind of a sticky serum, so it almost works a little bit like a sticky primer as well. Now in this front section, we have foundations and powders, and I gotta say I got rid of so many foundations, whether they were formulas that just don't work for me anymore, but I also had so many foundations that did not match me that I just kept what I feel like matches me the best. First of all, I did end up switching up my Infallible shade. It's not perfect, but it's definitely better than the one that I used a few videos ago when I was talking about how I've come back to this as my everyday foundation full circle, but I was having a hard time finding my shade. I'm using 435 now. I don't remember what like the shade name is called, but it's 435. This is my everyday foundation for work. It's my everyday foundation for, weekends where I have long plans. It is just the GOAT. It is long lasting. It looks fresh. It looks great on my textured skin. It's the best. The next favorite foundation, but definitely a different vibe, is the About Face Performer Foundation. This is what I use when I want lighter coverage, a lighter feel. It's very much a skincare makeup hybrid. It's more of like a tinted foundation formula, but you can build it up or you can pair it with concealer if you want more of a fuller face. This is also what I like to wear when my skin is feeling sensitive because it just feels good on the skin and it is hydrating. I did also keep the ColourPop Pretty Fresh Tinted Foundation Balm. I kept this over the Milani, and I'll tell you why. Once again, in practice, when I'm going to work every day, when I'm talking more throughout the day, the Milani was not holding up in my fine lines, and this was doing slightly better. Now, this shade is light 6, and I would say it's getting now that it's like full on winter, it is definitely a better shade match for me than it was in summer when I did like my stick comparison video. So kept that one. I feel like this is a really nice hydrating formula. I also kept, against my better judgment, the L'Oreal Skin Ink, and I had very mixed feelings about this when I did my full review and wear test of this, which I did put it to the test like against sweat outside in the Vegas summer. I didn't want to throw this away just yet. I feel like I want to figure out a way to make this work, but now that I'm like going to work, I just haven't had the opportunity to do so because I'm obviously not going to test this out at work and then be like halfway throughout the day hating how I look. And then the last like true foundation product that I kept was the Max Factor Miracle Touch Cream to Liquid Foundation. Now this is another one that I bought in the UK, fell in love with, and then I'm like, oh crap, I can't get this in the US. However, I did a video and I found out that the CoverGirl and Olay Simply Ageless Cream Foundation is like the exact same thing. I did have to return the one that I used in that video though because the shade was so off, but I do plan on repurchasing that formula when I'm done with this. Beautiful cream foundation, lasts really well, smooths over all of my skin texture. I'll probably end up purchasing that once I finish this one up. I've got a way to go though. But yeah, I discovered all this makeup that I really loved in the UK, and I did do a UK makeup haul if you want to watch everything that I brought back this summer. Now the rest of these are powders. Now I do have 2 powder foundations, but I'm not using them like that. So I have the Maybelline Superstay, which you can see I have actually hit pan on, which is incredibly exciting. And then I have the L'Oreal Infallible powder. I'm using these as finishing powders. I am not using these as like the only thing on my face foundation powders, if that makes sense. It's to add a little bit more coverage. It's just to set my makeup, and that's just how I prefer wearing these when I feel like I need to particularly set my makeup over blemishes. Sometimes you just need that little extra boost of coverage, and that's how I really like using these. But as far as setting powder, this is definitely a category where I kept probably too many formulas. Again, a formula that I love from the UK, the W7 H2O Loose Powder. It's water-based, first of all. This is the first water-based powder that I've ever used. But what's interesting is that it's so soft and finely milled. This is probably one of the thinnest powders I have ever tried. Very similar in texture almost to my Laura Mercier powder, which I have a little mini of from Sephora. This is the GOAT though. This is the Holy Grail special event powder, but a mini is enough. Like, you know, it's very rare that I finish a powder before I discover another one that I like. I also have the Pretty Smart powder just because I wanted one pressed powder. Sometimes they're handy for just a lighter application. Then I have the Milani Conceal and Perfect Blur Out powder. Again, a beautiful formula for really blurring out skin texture. It is very thin. I would say that this is probably the closest drugstore dupe to the Laura Mercier powder. And hello, the mesh sifter. Always a good touch. I love the Essence Flawless Skin Trio powder. This is more for like brightening, but I hate this sifter situation. Like at first I thought it was really cool because you could isolate the color that you want if you just want like the brightening lavender or the purple, whatever. But it's like whatever's already on top, you're then pushing into that section. And I don't know, it was good on paper, not maybe good in practice, but I like the formula. I don't want to waste all this powder, so I decided to keep it. And then finally, I have one from AOA. I really need to do another AOA haul. I have not done a shopmissa.com makeup haul in a while. I'm sure they have so many new products, but they've always made really nice setting powder. But again, the packaging, it's hard. I reach for other ones in lieu of this because of the packaging, but the actual formula is so silky and thin and really pretty. Like you can see that even added a little bit of a luminosity to my skin, but you know, they gotta cut costs somewhere. This is like $1. So again, it looked like this drawer had a lot, but we got through this one a lot faster. It's just that these are like bulkier products. On to the next drawer, which is my blushes, but I've also put my subtle stacks in here. I have 2 different subtle stacks just based on what I was traveling with, and then kind of like my backup stacks. These are all makeup pans that click together, or twist together rather, to create a very travel-friendly compact makeup collection. I have traveled with these several times. They are so convenient, easy to swipe on with your fingers or just bring a sponge with you. They also come with like little brushes for the powder products. I have a whole video about my subtle stack configuration and how I use it, so go check that out. I will link it. Now, blush was also a little bit hard for me in terms of my declutter. I do still feel like I have too much, but you know, there's been my everyday blushes. Like I've been using the Rare Beauty Soft Pinch Liquid Blush in Encourage almost every single day, but that is because I've also been wearing like the same eyeshadow look every single day, like for work. So this has been my go-to, and it also kind of takes place of my highlighter because it's so dewy. But because, you know, my blush choice definitely ranges depending on what else I'm wearing on my face or on my lips, so I can match the tone. I did find myself keeping a lot of blush. I did keep the other Rare Beauty blush that I have. This one is a much warmer shade called Worth It. This is like a summer peachy shade for me. Let me swatch Encourage, although I've showed it in a video recently. See, it's like a cooler mauve. And then I also have the Pretty Smart Liquid Blush in Inspire, which is actually, in my opinion, a dupe of the Rare Beauty blush. And this, I believe, is like $7 at Walmart. Look, side by side, very close. This one's slightly more of like a warmer pink versus like a purpley mauve, but when you blend them out, they look so similar. And the finish is very similar as well. I did keep a couple of my e.l.f. Camo liquid blushes. I think I've really been leaning toward liquid blush more so recently. Let me take this off. I've been leaning more toward liquid blush recently because I've been going for more of that bouncy, dewy look. This one is in the shade Berry Well, and then I also have Suave Mauve. Actually, was this the one that I think is technically a perfect dupe of the Rare Beauty blush? When these came out, I did an all-day comparison wear test of the e.l.f. versus Rare, and those were the 2 shades that I matched up as dupes. Then I also have my About Face Blush Rush. This is in the shade Grand Prix, which is sort of like a bronzer. It's a brown. It has reddish undertones, so it's definitely a blush, but it gives that kind of bronzy vibe as you start to blend it out. Also have a liquid blush from The Balm. Their Talk is Cheek blush. This is in the shade Lecture. I feel like you can tell what kind of blushes I like. I have kind of these neutral peachies and then mauves. Those are definitely the overwhelming majority of my blushes, but I also have a Moira one. This is the Love Study Liquid Blush in Trust. This is much more of a pink. Beautiful medium pink, but very pigmented, very strong. And then this is the Too Faced, I just showed this I think in my last video, the Too Faced Cloud Crush. This is technically a lip and cheek color. I've only used it on my lips. This is called Bed of Roses. I really like this formula and I have a few of their other shades in this. It's very soft. It's kind of a soft matte, cloudy, velvety finish there. And then the last one in this little section is the Versed Blush Stick in the shade Bloom. This is another great everyday pink shade. It's not too strong, soft, dewy finish. And then this little section is a combination of powders and creams. Starting out, we've got another Kaleidos product and another beautiful example of their packaging. This is their, oh, you know what? There's no labels on this freaking blush, but it's the red shade. I'm a sucker for red blush, and this is such a beautifully pigmented, soft, buttery formula. Again, Kaleidos is just one of those brands that I feel, it's kind of an indie brand, I guess you could say, which is why it's a little less known in the mainstream, but beautiful quality, beautiful packaging. I'm a fan. And then back here, I just couldn't fit them up here. We've got the Revolution Bouncy Blur Blush, which I don't know, what would you call this, like powder to cream, cream to powder? It is definitely a hybrid formula that I really like. Similar to that like Too Faced liquid blush, but in a powder formula. It just creates this sort of soft, matte, semi-translucent finish. This one is in Bouncy Berry. And then I also have Blurry Rose, a little bit lighter. It's just this beautiful luminous finish. And then the other one that I kept is the Paprika Soft Bronze. This one's a little bit lighter and warmer than I would typically wear, but I thought it would be pretty in like the spring and summer. It's a little orange on my skin tone though. Now, the last time I decluttered this drawer, I kept so many ColourPop cream blushes, and I did go through and do a second pass at them. Even though they're some of my favorites, I just really needed to pare down. I was not using all of them. So I did keep the lip and cheek balm in Heart's Content. I don't know if they still make this shade or if it was just the Valentine's Day collection, but this is a really nice middle of the road kind of Barbie pink. And then this one is Adore You. I definitely wear this one more, a little bit more of a fuchsia shade. This one is Second Date, sort of like a reddish brown almost. And then Larchmont Village is a straight up brown blush. Again, kind of like a bronzer, blush and bronzer hybrid. Next, I have the About Face Cheek Freak Blush Balm in Big O. This is one of my absolute favorite red blushes. And this is a cream to powder formula. Like it almost feels wet when you just like put your finger in it. You can kind of see the texture. It dries down to a powder finish, super smooth, but it almost retains that kind of dewiness that a liquid or a cream blush would give you. Then we have the Rare Beauty Melting Blush in Nearly Neutral. This is like one of those products that I feel like fell to the wayside. They were really popular when they first came out, but then her liquid blush got more popular. I still love this formula. I mention it every time I do a declutter or I just mention Rare Beauty in general. It is the perfect no makeup blush. This is another cream to powder formula. It dries down to look so natural on the skin. Next, we have the NYX Buttermelt Blush. This is in All the Butter, which is a beautiful purple blush. I feel like purple blush seems scary to a lot of people, but I think purple's incredibly flattering and it's also brightening. It helps neutralize the yellow in your skin, so you end up with kind of like a brighter, pinker complexion. I think that's beautiful. One of my most used powder blush formulas, though, is the Revolution Blusher Reloaded. This is in Rose Kiss. This is such a great everyday medium pink. It does lean a little bit warm on my skin tone, but it's just neutral enough that I feel like I can pull it off. This is probably my second most used powder blush, the Pretty Smart Extra Pretty Pressed Blush in Goddess. This one is definitely more of a cool toned mauve vibe. Finally, another red blush that I could not part with. This is the Luna Magic Blush in Anita. This is incredibly pigmented. This is not a blush you want to take for granted. Really, really pretty cool toned red. It almost leans pink on my skin. I feel like I end up using more of the powder blushes when I'm mattifying my face more. Maybe it's in the summer. Maybe I have, an acne breakout, so I'm using a little bit more powder, like when I said that I use the powder foundations for extra coverage. But I will say that I'm reaching for the liquids the most lately. Down here in this one, I have contours, bronzers, and highlighters. Probably the leanest drawer. Now I also just threw in this drawer because this is just where I had the room, my Salt New York palettes. Similarly to Subtle, these are kind of like all-in-one face palettes for me, except, they don't have eye products. But Salt New York is a woman-owned small company out of New York. They make amazing cream complexion products, and they're just so amazing on the go. They look beautifully luminous on my skin. They're great for dry skin, but I have a few of their concealer and foundation balms, and then a few of their contour, blush, and highlight pans. This is the one, this is the one that I've recently traveled with. So I've got their red blush. I believe that's a concealer, because remember I had that little, I had this little square in my concealer drawer. One of these is a concealer and one of these is a foundation balm. Their contour shade in taupe is the perfect contour shade for my skin tone because it is on the cooler side and actually creates a shadow to define my skin tone with. But yeah, as I said, red blush is kind of my vibe right now, and I think it's actually great year-round because in the summer, obviously, you have this nice, vibrant, rosy appearance, but I also think it's very like holiday festive. So other than these being in here, I have these separated by contour and highlight, and you can see I really did not keep that many contour / blushes. Also, this is a lip product. This does not belong in here. As far as contours and bronzers go, I've mentioned that the Sachu Liquid Contour Stain has been my go-to lately. I just really like the formula. I think it's a little pricey as far as something that I would repurchase, but perhaps while it's on sale, I think it was actually recently on sale during the holidays, but this shade, which is number 2, Giving Iconic, is a really nice like bronzer / contour everything shade for me. I also kept the Versed bronzer stick. This is in the shade August. Really love this formula. It blends out very well. The last cream contour that I kept is the ColourPop Bronze Sticks in Laguna Beach. This is definitely the coolest. This is probably the best straight up contour shade for my skin tone. I mean, you can really see the difference in tones between those 3. And then I only kept 2 powder bronzer contours. So the bronzer I kept is from Pretty Smart. You can tell I really like this brand. I mean, they're very affordable. This brand's actually owned by the same people who make the balm. Like, it's the same founder. So a lot of the same ethos, clean formulas, sustainable packaging. So this is their bronzer powder in Hermosa 2. Just a really nice silky bronzer powder there. A little bit on the warm side. It's very interesting to see all of these swatched side by side. And then there's once again, the Kaleidos. This is a heavy metal palette. This is their Symphony Contour Trio in medium. And this is the most perfect powder contour shade. Okay, I'm trying to pick a clean finger here. This is the most perfect powder contour shade for me. It's gonna look gray, but it actually creates that shadow on my skin tone. Beautiful, silky, thin formula. Now this also does have a bronzer in it that I can use to warm up the perimeters of my face if I want to just like stay within this palette. And then I never use this like matte highlight shade. Every time I've ever had a contour palette that has a matte highlight shade, it's just never touched. Now, considering that I've been not using highlight very recently because I'm using very dewy liquid blushes, I did keep quite a few highlights now that I'm, looking about it and thinking about it, but I felt like I kept the Holy Grails and then I kept some like unique highlights. So y'all know the Holy Grail is the ColourPop Light Sticks in Glazy, still my everyday highlighter when I do reach for highlight. highlight. Sometimes I just want that little extra pop. I also use this on my brow bone. This is the perfect highlight shade for me. It is a neutral champagne. I also kept the About Face Light Lock highlight fluid in shaken or stirred. This is a little bit more of a golden lean, but not too yellow gold. You can definitely, oh! Okay, so the stopper in that doesn't work very well because this just dripped everywhere. Love that for me. All right, well, carpet's a little extra sparkly now. The last liquid highlight that I kept was the Hard Candy Just Glow. I compared this against my old favorite, like larger liquid highlight from Physicians Formula, and I kind of liked this one a bit better. This is more of a pinky champagne, so I feel like I did a good job in like at least choosing to keep the liquid highlighters that actually have distinct looks. But this one is a lot more of a like luminous, I applied way too much. This one's more of a luminous versus shimmery highlight. I think it looks a little bit more natural on my skin tone even. It's definitely not as stark, but it's adding that glow. Then as far as powder highlighters, the one that's kind of like the everyday shade, and I've had this for a long time, this has been repurchased, the Essence Pure Nude Highlighter in Be My Sunlight. Very much a more subtle highlight, just adds a tiny, tiny bit of glow. But then we start getting into kind of my playful highlights, and you can kind of tell why I kept these for just different types of looks. So I have this lilac highlighter in Hippo from ColourPop. This is a very, very well-loved highlighter of mine. I love a lavender highlight. Really, really pretty on the skin. Again, it doesn't give off like strong purple vibes. And then we have this Moira highlight, which is absolutely insane. This is called Foxy Pink in their Dreamlight highlighter. I don't know if I would call this necessarily a duochrome. Like there's definitely like a shift going on, and it's not just a spray over, which is nice. You get that pink to gold shift. I just think this is gorgeous. It's very much a dramatic glam. And speaking of dramatic, the last three are my Kaleidos highlighters, which are incredibly high impact. This is the Solar Sailor highlight, and these definitely are duochrome. And these can also be used as eyeshadows, and if you put them over like a dark base, that's when the duochrome of it all really comes out. Just alone, they look like just shimmery, intense highlighters. This one is the Space Age Prophecy. You might have seen this one on social media. This one went super viral. Like, it's almost too pigmented. Like you have to be really careful about how you apply it. But this one you can see on its own. There's a little bit of like a gold shift, gold to yellow to green shift on that one. And then Skywalker, this one's really pretty. It's kind of like a whitish blue. So those are kind of like my festival highlights, my concert highlights, my girls' night out highlights. Down to my last two drawers, here is my lipstick drawer. Now, if you've been watching me for a while or you've seen my other makeup collection declutter videos, you may be surprised to see that all of my lip products are in this drawer, and it's not even full because I used to have two different drawerfuls of lip products. One was glosses, liquid lipsticks, and lip stains. And the other was traditional like bullet lipsticks and liners. And now I've done such a thorough declutter. Everything's in one drawer because again, I feel like there have been staple products that I've been reaching for, and I will reach for different shades within those product lines, but there was just so much in this drawer that I was not using. And it was a mess. Like I had gotten rid of all of the organization. It was just a bunch of tubes floating around. This feels so much better. Now, there are definitely some products that have been carried over and have survived several declutters, and one of those is the Milani Color Fetish matte lipsticks. These are my absolute favorite matte bullet lipsticks. Such a comfortable formula while being incredibly colorful, incredibly opaque, and long lasting. So this is the shade Fleur. Beautiful like berry shade for fall and winter. Although technically I think it was part of their like floral spring collection, but I mean, does it get any more beautiful? And it's not patchy at all. Like this is such an incredible formula. They really knocked it out of the park with this. I won't swatch every single shade, but I'll kind of pick out some of my favorites. Oh, here's another one that's beautiful for fall, Dahlia. A little bit more of a plum. Like hello. These perform better than so many high-end lipsticks that I've tried. And then this one is great because of the brown lip trend coming back, Desire. Just so creamy, and they do stain also, so that's a thing. Now I will say my everyday lip product, and I actually am missing a few in here because they're in both my work bag and my purse, is the Milani Color Fetish lip stains. These have been my go-to because they last really well on my lips. They are just really comfortable to wear as all-day lip colors. I usually only have to touch up once after eating, but even still there's color left behind. They are kind of like this gel consistency, but what I do usually, and I showed this in my new everyday makeup routine, is I'll apply them and then I'll rub them into my lips and really get that stain into the skin and kind of create a little bit softer of an appearance versus like a full-on glossy lip stain look. That was the shade Rose Rising, by the way. That's one of my everyday shades. The other one is Mauve Mentality. And then I did keep a few of the Milani Color Fetish lip oils, although I'm not wearing them as often, which is why I only kept 3. This red one I definitely wear more in the summer. It is their Cherry Lime. And then these 2 are fall and winter shades. The Lychee Nectar Oil. I mean, you know I'm a sucker for a mauve. I'm always wearing mauve. And then Honey Fig, which is more of a brown. Oh, there are 2 more that I kept. Blackberry Agave, another kind of reddish brown. And then this one is Luminoso. So it's based off of the Milani Blush Luminoso, the baked one that everyone loves, but they made it into a lip oil and it just gives that same like gold peachy vibe. And I am storing them upside down because I can't tell what color they are when they are right side up. In this corner, I have some NYX butter glosses. Most of them are like the neutrals, so I kept Spiked Toffee and Bit of Honey. Those are definitely my most worn. So those are the only 2 butter glosses I kept because they were the only ones that I was wearing. But I also kept the NYX Matte Smushy Balm. I do have a video where I test this along with some other new drugstore makeup. It's kind of hard to swatch because it is more of a transparent or sheer product, but I love this shade, which is Squeeze and Sizzle. And it's a matte lip balm. It kind of gives that cloudy matte appearance. The swatch doesn't give it justice, so try to go watch that video to really see how it blends out on the lips and lasts all day. Here, this is a little better. But it's definitely like a matte lip tint is a good way to put it. Kept a few glosses from ColourPop that I want to start wearing more because I really love the formula. Their Luxe Lip Oil and Lip Gloss, 2 different formulas. This is their Gloss and Tied Up, which is much more of a neutral kind of bare lip look on me. And their lip oils are pretty sheer, but this shade in Bengal just gives a really nice wash of color, kind of a rosy wash. I have a clear lip gloss or lip elixir, from Sachu that looks great over their stains, which I have over here. I have 4 of the peel off Sachu stains. Now, I feel like if I had to choose, like I'm still going to choose to use the Milani stains over these, and then even more so the Wet n Wild stains over these. I do have a full video about the Wet n Wild stains. They are still criminally underrated. I just find that there's a lot easier to use. The peel off, like I do feel like it lasts a really good while, but it is also harder to get an even application. That's my opinion. Now I do also have a full section. I think, there's kind of a theme here. I think Milani kind of makes my favorite lip products at the moment, but I've also been wearing their Keep It Full Glossy Plumping Lip Balms a lot, especially paired with the liners from Wet n Wild. I think that's a really good combo. I do have a full video about these, and I do feel like they give my lips a more plump appearance, but not because of like an irritant or stinging, but rather the hyaluronic acid and the hydration actually like pushes out my lip lines and makes them look so much more smooth that I end up getting that plumping look. And I did do like a before and after comparison with these in that video, so you can go check that out. Honestly, I don't think I even kept any traditional lip plumpers, like the kind that sting you. I'm over them. They give minimal results that barely last. So I'd much rather have like the hydrating plumpers that are more so focusing on smoothing the lip lines because your lips are so hydrated. And on that note, here's another one. This is the Diamond Plumper from Physicians Formula in the shade Pink Radiant Cut. beautiful like bunny tongue pink. Oh, I also have one of the Versed tinted lip serums. This is in the shade Gem, which it's giving black honey vibes. Really pretty. It is on the sheerer side, obviously, when I swatch it like this. Some of these like more hydrating tinted products like lip oils and stuff, they're kind of hard to swatch because they're gonna come off sheer or watery, but on the lips, they look beautiful. This is the Pretty Smart Lip Oil in Bliss. Love this one because it's kind of like a mauvey brown. I have another one of those. This one's in the shade Loving. This is really telling me a lot about my go-to shades. Kind of a plummy mauve. One of my favorite underrated drugstore lip formulas. This is the Neutrogena Hydro Boost Hydrating Lip Shine. I've been talking about this since it came out in like 2014. This is the shade Pink Mocha. This is a beautiful everyday gloss, but it is very hydrating, though it definitely feels more like a lip gloss than a lip oil. It has that slightly tacky feeling, but the hyaluronic acid makes it hydrating. I have one of the clear Keep It Full Max Bombshell plumping lip balms from Milani. And then I did keep a handful of ColourPop lip products, but honestly, I decluttered a lot of them besides the lippy sticks. But the only like lip sticks, I guess, that I kept 2 blotted lips and 2 matte lips. The blotted lip is probably my preferred formula. I think it's a lot more comfortable. I think it's a lot more flattering. It is kind of that cushy, cloudy, soft matte appearance. That one is in the shade Attention Please. The other blotted lip that I kept is in Canon Drive. This one's great for fall and winter. It's kind of a burgundy brown, I guess you could say. And then 2 of the matte lips. I don't wear these often. This one's in Beeper, which is such a classic. Probably one of my first ultra matte lips was Beeper, which is like kind of a taupey brown. Beautiful color. It's just my lips are so dry perpetually, but especially here in Vegas in the winter, that like the last thing I want is a traditional matte feel. This one is Tulum, another beautiful kind of like terracotta red. They supposedly redid the formula on these to be more hydrating. I don't know if it necessarily made a difference for me. Already went over the Sachu stains. What else do I have in here? Oh, we have one more that I missed. I did keep an ultra glossy lip. This one is in the shade Pasadena. Very sheer though. I'm gonna put that with the others. Oh, and then just a clear glossy lip. I do like to keep some clear glosses on hand to use with my stains, like the more matte stains. Like the Sachu stains do dry down as a matte versus the Milani stains. So often I will top those with clear glosses. Here's another one from Physicians Formula, their Diamond Gloss. Before we get into the liners, I want to go over the rest of the lipsticks. So in these sections, we have a lot of bullet, like traditional stick lipsticks, and then glosses and liquid lipsticks. In this section, we have glosses and liquid lipsticks from, that's right, Kaleidos. Check out this tube. Very unique. So this is one of their glosses in Pink Marquise. Nice everyday mauve. I mean, so here's the thing is like, because when I declutter off camera, I try to avoid swatching in order for me not to keep things that like, you know, dazzle me, but I haven't used in forever. The downside to that is I am realizing how much of the same shades I kept because I wasn't necessarily swatching side by side like I do in video declutters. This one's Free Fall, a beautiful silver shimmer. Definitely good to use as a topper for stains or any type of lipstick. Elixir is a bit warmer of a neutral. It's probably like a Your Lips but better shade. Hot Pursuit is a bit deeper. This is such a nice kind of hybrid between lip oil and lip gloss, if I had to describe the texture, because it's not sticky, it's very cushy. Now, Kaleidos also has matte liquid lipsticks that I kept a few of, particularly shades that I was interested in just wearing more. Again, beautiful packaging. It's got like this matte, almost silicone-y feel on the outside. This first shade is Dune. Love that for the brown lip comeback. And then I have Echo Valley, another beautiful brown, a little bit on the cooler side. Oh no, this last one does not have a shade name. I think the sticker fell off. This is more of a dusty warm mauve. If you know the name of this shade, let me know. As far as lip liners go, I definitely kept a lot, but this is probably less than half of what I had. I already said that I kept the lip liner stains from Wet n Wild, but let me point out the ones that I wear the most, and that has to be the L'Oreal Color Riche in Worth It and Worth It Medium. I mean, again, just like my most used bullet lipsticks, these are my most used lip liners. And the thing about this lip liner formula is that it's creamy and it blends well, but it also lasts, because I do feel, even with some of the liners that I kept, they're creamy, but to a point where they never really dry down. They're almost like lipsticks, just in a pencil format, and they actually either feather or smudge, just much easier. So these are definitely my favorite formula to get the best of both worlds. Oh, there's one more, Worth It Intense. I forgot that I had this one too. I just have the whole Worth It family. Now I also kept a lot of Milani understatement liners. These are probably my second favorite, especially when we're talking about pigmentation and staying power. So I did keep, I believe, 5 of these. And a lot of the understatement liners actually match their Color Fetish lipstick colors, but they don't have the same names. Here I have French Rosé. Next I have Desert Rose. And then I have Sassy Cherry, a beautiful red. Next is Magenta Mood. And last one that I kept is Brazen Berry. I also kept a ton of the ColourPop lippy pencils. Now I have a love-hate relationship with these as lip liners, because these are kind of like what I was talking about, where they feel like lipsticks put into a pencil format. They are super creamy and opaque, but I don't find them to actually last very long, especially if you top them with any other lip product that's not matte. They do tend to feather. This is the shade Bunny Boo, one of my most worn, pretty deep neutral. I have Brink, and also they all do this. I don't know why, but almost all of my ColourPop liners like fall out of the pencil. Brink is a classic ColourPop shade, but I just cannot find myself to declutter them because they're so creamy, they're so pretty. I have a lot of variety in the collection. This is Pretty Princess from their Bratz collection. Also from their Bratz collection, I have Cool Cat. This one, again, coming out of the freaking pencil, is Oh Snap. This one is 5 stars. One more from the Bratz collection. This one's called Angel. Bumble is an old favorite. I used to have this also in one of the liquid lipsticks. Really, really pretty. And then this one is Bichette, which is another really classic ColourPop shade. It is their really iconic red. So again, love-hate relationship, but I just love these colors. I also have a couple of the Milani Keep It Full Plumping lip liners. These weren't super impressive to me, so I did declutter a good few of them. This one is the shade Over the Top, kind of a brownish mauve. And then I also kept Hot Tamale, just because sometimes it can be hard for me to find certain shades of brown in a liner, like this one, which leans a little bit more neutral versus warm. Also have my About Face lip liner. This is their Fix Lip Pencil in Incinerate. See how much warmer this one is? And then I also kept quite a few of these Maybelline lifter liners, which, you know, I didn't give the best review solely because of how poorly they sharpen. However, after I returned the ones that were giving me really hard time, these I have been able to sharpen successfully so far. They're still, you know, pretty long. We're still in kind of the beginning stages of the pencil, but I sharpened all of these during my declutter and they all sharpened well. So that's why I decided to keep them. I just swatched the shade Cross the Line, a very, very cool deep brown, and which also makes this one look even warmer. Main Character is their beautiful red shade. Fine Line, Out of Line, and Let's Bounce. I also have the CoverGirl Outlast stain, though I keep this with the lip liners because of the tip. This was kind of a weird stain for me because it did last a long time, but even though it starts out as a red, I felt like the stain was very, very pink, but I did decide to keep it. I have one of the e.l.f. Cream Glide lip liners. This is a pretty decent lip liner for the price. Very, very creamy. This is the shade Pinky Swear, and this is a very cheap product. It is a just regular sharpenable pencil. I would say that it's a good kind of collection staple. Also have one from Smashbox. This is just called medium brown. I think I got this in like a holiday kit or something, but I thought it was a pretty color and very creamy, smooth, and opaque finish. I have 2 of the waterproof lip liners from Koki. That's probably a brand you haven't heard me say in a while. I am trying to reconnect with them and just kind of like get to know their products again, because there are some really good hidden gems, and I do have a discount code with them, I believe. This is in Rose Berry, but I always really liked their lip liners. These ones are the sharpenable ones. They had retractable ones that I felt were even better than Kylie Cosmetics, but these are so smooth, so vibrant. This one was magenta. And then the last couple are from Revlon, their Color Stay Longwear lip liners. These are nice. They're Color Stay Longwear lip liners. These are kind of similar to the Color Riche ones from L'Oreal, where you get the creaminess, but they're not like a super movable formula. That was a weird line. This one was called Nude. This one I wear more often is called Raisin, kind of like a plummy brown. And that, my friends, is the current lipstick drawer in its entirety, which leaves us with the last drawer of eyeshadow palettes. So these were my bigger palettes that I couldn't fit where the rest of my shadows are, as well as some, I don't know if I'd call them mini palettes. They're like 9 pans. They're kind of like in between. But this drawer definitely got a discerning declutter, because I'm just not using big palettes anymore. Even when I travel and travel for a long time, I'm really just grabbing smaller shadow solutions. But these are the ones that I just really couldn't part with, because I can still see myself using them. And I am still using palettes. You know, when I mentioned I'm still doing a little bit more glam makeup on the weekends, at nights, date nights, girls' night out, concerts, and even work events, I am doing like more of a full eyeshadow look. So here are the ones that I kept. Let's start in the back with kind of these larger ones. I kept the Profusion Twilight palette. Now, I've gotten questions about this because I tag this often in my content, but they redid the packaging and they also renamed it to Twilight Hour. And let me tell you why I think they did that. And again, not substantiated. This is anecdotal and observational, but allegedly, in my opinion, this was meant to kind of be a tongue-in-cheek reference to the Twilight films, because, you know, opening it up, looking at the shade names, we have Coven, we have Dawn, we have Blood Moon, we have Thunder, like the baseball game, Thunder, you know what I'm saying? Eclipse. I just felt Meadow. I felt like this was New Moon. I mean, okay, we can't even argue that one. So anyway, I think that they got in trouble. And so this is now called the Twilight Hour palette, and it comes in like a white packaging. So if you see me link this and it doesn't look like this and it's called something else, that's why. But this is just such a beautiful sultry palette. And honestly, I think that the Profusion shadow formula is very underrated. I'll just swatch a few of these here. The shimmers are soft, they're buttery, they're high impact. The mattes are very silky and decently pigmented. I mean, like, that's not the richest purple I've ever seen, but it's not sheer by any means. It's not patchy by any means. And this palette's like $10. And look at those shimmers. Hello? And then I kept 2 of my jumbo ColourPop palettes. I kept Smoke and Roses. Now this is one that I do actually reach for more often, because you have this sort of like neutral pink leaning color story. This is one that I travel with, especially for weddings. Whether I'm in the wedding or I'm just a guest, you can really get a nice neutral look out of this, but you can go a little bit more glam. And then Smokin' Hot is a really nice, like, warm, neutral summer palette, a lot more oranges and reds. You know, I don't find myself using these shades super often anymore, especially since I got my color analysis that said that I'm cool toned and look better in cool tones, and that kind of just like opened my eyes to that whole world. But because I don't have other palettes that have some of these shades covered, especially like these reds, these like super, super peachy shades. That's why I decided to keep this, because it is actually different in my collection. And I mean, so pretty. And so there are still times where I do want to reach for these shades if I have a specific look in mind. So that's why I wanted to keep that. These are just empty Z palettes in back. I don't really depot my shadows anymore, but I figured I'd keep them just in case. I do have some magnetic pans from both Salt New York as well as Cleona Cosmetics. magnetics, although I have magnetic palettes from Cliona. This is an indie brand that makes the most intense shimmers you've ever seen. I cannot, oh my God. You have to be really careful with these. I forget every single time. I do not want to ruin my nails to lift this up and tell you what the shade is. I am sorry about that, but okay, you know what? Never mind. It might be a crime for me not to tell you what this shade is. Oh, this is just called Quad 1. I don't know if that's the name or what. These are very fragile, very flaky, but the intensity is just absolutely unmatched by anything else I own. Definitely check them out. They're an indie brand, a woman-owned brand. I met the sisters that own this brand on one of the Creators and Friends trips. That's how I was introduced to them. These are the bigger shadows. Nothing compares. Nothing compares. Now, I will say I decluttered a lot of my ColourPop collaboration palettes and limited edition palettes, but I did keep the Bratz one because I felt like this is one that I am actually reaching for like night out sultry looks. I absolutely love the shades that they put in here. This was, you know, I'm not a big fan of collaborations in general and like the IP usage for these makeup collections. And I feel like ColourPop does them so often that it kind of takes away from some of the specialness. But the Bratz collection, for some reason, really inspired me. And I did do a video about the whole collection. Not 100% sure you can get it anymore, but I just thought they did such a cool job. When a makeup product inspires you to actually like have fun and play with it, like it's done its job. You know what I'm saying? And this was all about like the girls' night out, the sultry, the attitude. And I just really think that they did a great job. Now, this one I was on the fence about. This is the Too Faced Happily in Love palette. I have barely used this. This was one where I kind of let my intrusive thoughts win, where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep it and I'm gonna make a point to use it. You know, it's definitely something I can get away with wearing in the winter. It's also my only full-size Too Faced palette. I have like a tiny holiday palette that actually, where did it go? Because I don't remember talking about that one when we were up in the other drawer. But anyway, this is sort of like a reddish, purplish color theme based on like apple pie, basically. But again, this had some shades that I didn't necessarily feel like I had in other palettes. So when something offers variety to my collection and it's not a repeat, then I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. So reds, greens, even this kind of weird yellowy color. I don't know if I'd necessarily wear that. Yeah, this like yellowy orange custard. You've seen a lot of like neutrals in my collection. I really needed to keep this Kaleidos, the Escape Pod palette, because I wanted to make sure that I had a palette with these fun, bright colors if I did want to go super, super bold. And again, Kaleidos just hits it out of the frickin' park with these formulas. We've got Saturnalia, which is this intense metallic green, but their mattes are still beautifully impactful. Hello, nice to meet ya. Have you ever seen anything so gorgeous? The quality is just insane. So this is like my bright palette, my brightest palette that I have right now. Pretty much everything borders on neon, the way that it pops off my skin. My arm is definitely feeling it. It's a little overswatched. Then I have the Moira Celestial Chic palette. This is a very icy blue palette. Blues, silvers, grays, definitely different from what I have in the rest of my collection. And Moira shadows are also very, very high impact. I don't know, I guess I would call Moira an indie brand, but they are able to do everything so affordably. But here are a couple, I can't. The reflectiveness of their shimmers are crazy, but that's like the gist of this whole palette. Then I have several Alter Ego palettes. I really like their shadows, and you can get 10% off with my code. So I kept 3 of their palettes. I have Mist Haven, which is a very run-of-the-mill neutral, because sometimes this is just what you need. This is just what the doctor ordered. Now they also have pretty creamy and opaque mattes, and their shimmers are also very reflective. Like that is a very intense dark matte, and check out that shimmer. So, so pretty. So this is like a sultry neutral. I wouldn't call this something that I would use like as an everyday, although you could get a lighter look with some of these more pastel shades. Like let's swatch Plum. It's just so easy. You get so much color payoff. So that was Mist Haven. I also kept Harmony. This one is another, like I guess you could call this neutral, but it's definitely more of a plummy, like reddish neutral. Really nice for fall and winter for sure. And then Daylight I probably use out of the three of these the most. This is definitely a nice like subtle neutral everyday palette. It does lean a little bit cooler, and this one does have more shimmers than mattes, but I think the mattes are very strategically chosen in terms of the tones. Like you're kind of using the mattes interchangeably with these shimmers. The shimmers really change up the whole look. So it's kind of like a soft glam palette. I really like that one. I have one Sigma 9 pan. This is their Ritzy palette. This is more of a warm neutral. This hazel is such an interesting shade. I don't personally think that it's very flattering on my skin tone. Such an interesting khaki shade. I'm usually using like these two. I think that the nocturnal shade is really pretty. And then we've got Brownstone is another one that I dip into often. Really beautiful bronze that I can even just put all over the lid. This one was another one where I was kind of like, meh, do I want to keep it? Do I want to not? Especially because like that hazel color, I don't think looks good on me. So I'm mostly using like the black, the brown, and Gold Rush also. It's the only Sigma palette I have, and this was more so the content creator in me versus the makeup consumer of like, okay, I want to have one open Sigma palette to just like be able to reference the formula. So that was more of like a work decision versus a personal use decision. Same with the NYX Ultimate Warm Neutrals palette. I've talked about this a lot because this is not my favorite eyeshadow formula by any means. They did make it better in recent years. They did redo the formula to be better, but it is so not worth what they charge. They charge like $20 for this little palette, and for some reason it is like consistently the top rated drugstore eyeshadow palette, and I just do not understand. It is a very nice all-encompassing like baseline neutrals palette if you don't already have one that covers these bases, but this was definitely a work decision versus a decision based on whether or not I actually use these. So these became a lot more opaque and creamy and blendable in this new version versus the one that was like super square and they didn't have like the embossing. If you're not already shopping for this, I feel like there are better neutrals at better prices. And finally, I did keep most of my ColourPop 9 pans just because I have so many that cover colors that I don't necessarily have in other palettes. So I have Peach Out, which I use a lot in spring and summer. One of my favorite shades is On Vacay, which is like this gold peach. Deja Brew is the perfect cool tone neutrals palette. If you are cool tone and you have a hard time finding shadows that don't pull super warm on you, this is the one you want to pick up. It's all like taupey neutrals that almost lean gray, but when you put them together in a look, this is going to complement cool skin tones really, really well. Then we have Plum Season, which is the straight up purple palette. Love using this because I love how purple shades make my brown eyes pop. And these shades just pop off of my skin tone as well. Blue Velvet, had to keep this one because I don't have a lot of other like vibrant blue shadows. Like I have the Moira Celestial Chic, but this is more bright blue. And this wavy shade, which I believe is one of their pressed glitters. I mean, this alone made keeping this palette worth it. And then finally Vibe Check. This is a little bit of a hodgepodge palette because it leans purple and pink, but we do have neutrals in there to kind of create a balanced look. So this is one that I would grab if I was traveling and wanted to do a little bit funner looks because it's got a little bit of everything. And 9 pan palettes and this packaging is pretty easy to travel with as well. So that is the last drawer. Those are what is left of my eyeshadow palettes and the rest of my collection. All right, so it's still a lot of makeup, but I feel like this makeup collection is more realistic for where I'm at now, where I'm still making beauty content, but it's not my everyday. And the products taking up space are ones that I truly enjoy using and wearing, and I'm doing so consistently. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. If you're still watching, leave a lipstick emoji in your comments so we know who else is in the club. If you want to keep spending time together, YouTube thinks you'll like this video next. I'll see you over there. Bye.